There are going to be times where you need to let go of your social media audience. You're going to have to shed some of them in order to properly pursue your vocation. Whether you've been posting and you've gathered a couple thousand people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever that number is, there are going to be really important transition points, points where you need to go beyond what you've been doing for a while in order to properly pursue your own calling. And I want to explore what this looks like and why most people don't do it. And they end up confining themselves in this unnecessary, mechanical relationship that ends up decaying them inside. And my name is Joe Yuli. I'm a philosopher. I'm absolutely obsessed with vocations and callings and navigating our paths in this world. And it's why I educate people here on YouTube, Substack. I have a podcast called the Career Archetypes Podcast. It's why I founded and run an online membership that shows and guides people how to choose the right career path with conviction by unearthing their very own career archetype. Because I've seen people pursuing their paths in the world when they're not aligned with their calling, and it just leads to resentment and regret. And yet when you pursue the thing that you're meant for, it leads to this elevated life, this sense of, oh, this is what I'm here for, this is what I'm meant to do. And we want more people in that bucket. We want more people that are ready and willing to pursue their calling and feeling elated because of it. And social media has been this modern thing that has helped people to navigate a path in a way that is alternative to the traditional model. So it's seen as this sort of freedom escape hatch, whereby you go down that tunnel, and by going down that tunnel, you're able to start to explore and express yourself in new ways. You're able to potentially earn a living from doing something that you feel deeply called for, that you feel as though you love. And I've seen this happen so many times, whereby people start this process of going out and starting expressing themselves on places like social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, wherever it is, Substack. And as they start to do this, they're trying to figure it out. And they don't quite know what's going to work, and they're posting random things. And typically what happens to people that have started to build some form of following or gathered different subscribers is that they hit something. They hit something that they're interested in, and they hit something that other people are interested in. And there's like this eureka moment because it works, it connects, it clicks, and other people are like, oh, I'm into that. And they're like, oh, well, I like sharing that. And there's this connection point. And all of a sudden, people want this type of thing from the person that's creating that type of thing. And so this moment ends up happening whereby they start saying, okay, I'm going to start to create more of this. Now, sometimes it's not even conscious, right? Sometimes they start to realize that people want a particular type of expression or content from them, and they start to say, okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to do that again. Because when I do that, suddenly I get this pump of dopamine. People start commenting, people start replying, people start liking it, people start applauding it, and they start getting all these good emotions from posting a very particular type or way of being, a certain form of self-expression. And the other people on the other side are enjoying it. They're like, oh, I love when you do it like this. I'm getting what I want. And so this relationship forms and it grows. Because typically, when there's one person that's into something that you're doing, there's going to be another one and another one and another one. And there's going to be this ripple where there's going to be all these sort of variants of the same type of person that are into something that you brought forward. And so in the beginning, this is great. This is amazing. This is, oh, other people actually are interested in what it is that I have to share. And this is way better than what I used to be doing. This is way better than the job that I'm in. This is way better than, sitting in silence and just conjuring up thoughts in my own head and having nobody appreciate them. And there's this moment of momentum and also this appreciation for people that are actually interested in what it is that you have to share. And I remember that I myself went through this back in the early days, early Instagram. I just started sharing things about purpose, certain things about philosophy, certain things about different areas of Jungian psychology. And it wasn't very much people. I just definitely didn't have a big following or anything. It was probably under like 800 people that were following me on that Instagram account. But just to see that there would be like 20 likes on a post, I'm like, oh, like people, there's someone out there that read that and was like, oh, I kind of like that, and that was amazing. Now, the problem that happens as you start to go down this track and go down this road is that it sets up a personal identity, a personal type of expression in this rigid structure, this format that is very, very solid. Now, the problem with that is that a vocation or your calling in this life asks you to continuously grow. It asks you to continuously develop yourself in pursuit of the higher aim. And so when we're moving in this direction of, we start posting on social media, maybe we are aligned with that in the beginning. But then we start to treat it a little bit like, oh, I've got to do it this particular way because that's how it's done in order to resonate properly with the correct people. And yet, if we start to feel any sort of sense of awareness that, okay, this expression, it's not really who it is that I am or what it is that I'm about, there's this friction that starts to take place. And so we start to become aware that how we're expressing and how we're posting doesn't quite fit with us anymore, doesn't quite work. And even if it's really, really subtle, oftentimes we'll push it back down because we've got so much momentum in the direction of building, of people accepting it, of people liking a particular way of being, so much so that it begins to pull us into this direction of creating a very specific type of identity that's, honestly, it's kind of one-dimensional. It's one shade of us, and people are only seeing this one particular shade of us. And there's often other parts of us that we want to share and express in our way of being. Now, we didn't know that in the beginning. All we knew was that, hey, we've got not really any audience, no one's really watching, no one's really paying any attention, and so I'm just going to throw some things out in the world. And then one hits, and then we start going, okay, that hits, and start building around that. And so people catch themselves into these rigid forms, these rigid public online identities where people have expectations around how they should be. They start forming themselves like businesses that have this sense of very typical consistency out in the world. And if they make changes, it can only be like really tiny, really slight, a tiny little tweak. But always fearing if they go out too far, that they're going to be rejected by the people that have now come to validate their existence. And this is a real problem. Because like I said, the vocation asks us to transcend this. It asks us to go beyond this. And if we don't, we end up decaying and deteriorating internally. And it just festers and continues to happen over a long period of time. So the longer we go on not going and breaking these boundaries that we've set ourselves up in, the harder it is to start to move towards our vocation. And so I've witnessed so many people over my own path and just seeing people around the world just withering away. Now, you wouldn't really be able to notice it in public. And the reason that I notice this is because I will often be working, talking with, and just be in conversation with people that have these bigger social media followings out in the world. And oftentimes they want to change, but they're just so worried that their audience that they've built now is going to leave them, and all of a sudden they're going to have nothing. Deeper down, the deeper worry is that they won't be accepted for specific areas of themselves that they deeply yearn to present, they deeply yearn to shed light on. And so there's this acceptance and belonging root at the bottom, whereby they won't be loved, they won't belong anymore if they do bring this facet of themselves into the light. And so they fear it. Now, there's other more superficial reasons why they do fear it, and that they are important as well, such as maybe their livelihood is built around it, such as they have people to support within their organization, and they've built a lot of that around the marketing of their social media channels. But underneath, there's this worry that they're not going to be accepted or loved if they go and pursue this alternative route, and people just aren't going to get it. And so they deny it. They push it away and they say, I'm not going to pursue that. I'm not going to do that. And instead, I'm going to just try and quiet it down. Now, the problem is that if we look at a vocation, right, a calling in the world, it doesn't care about numbers. It doesn't care about followers or subscribers if they're not taking you or helping you to pursue your life's work. All it cares about is your soul's development in this lifetime, to ensure that you are pursuing your craft and your calling in this lifetime. And if you're not doing that, then you're not being congruent to it, and it's going to cause this internal tension and pain where you'll start to show up to social media like, ugh, I've got to do this again. There becomes this real distaste for the content that you're creating. You fall out of love with it. And also a distaste for the people on the other side. This happens all the time, where people start to dislike the people that they were originally loving when those people started to validate, like, hey, this is actually cool, this is interesting, or whatever their like reactions are, but it's always positive in the beginning. And then later on, they're like, oh, of course they like that. Of course they like that. Of course they can't see beyond what I'm putting out. Maybe I even tried posting something that was a little bit different and no one liked it, so I've got to go and revert back to how I used to do it. And this resentment comes into the frame, whereby they just do not like the audience, the subscribers, or the followers. And this isn't on them. This is a reflection on you, and you needing to prepare yourself to transcend beyond the current way in which you are creating and bringing forward things in the world. And fundamentally, what you need to understand is that there is this, you're not recognizing that nature works in cycles. This is a natural law, right? We go from summer to spring to, summer to autumn to winter to spring, and the cycles of change are everywhere. We can just watch the moon go across a calendar over 30 days, and you'll just see the light changing over time, and then it will come back again, right? We understand day and night. We understand that we're born and we go to a child, and then we go to an adult, and then we go into old age, and then we pass and leave this lifetime. We understand that cycles are everywhere in this life, and yet for some reason, when it comes to things like social media, we don't see it cyclically. Instead, how most people see it is they're like, I want exponential growth, right? I just want to grow at a rapid rate, and that's what I want to do. And this is not how a vocation works. There needs to be this shedding if you are to then elevate towards where it is that you're meant to go, this release of what you're holding on to. Now, you want to start to ask yourself, are you holding on to a particular type of content? Are you holding on to a particular identity that you've been expressing as? And yet, that's not the full spectrum of who you are. This actually happened to me, and it happened because I was immersed in the sort of like reel, Instagram reel, TikTok shorts, that kind of culture for a little bit, whereby it was high speed, right? The pace was fast. And that was what was required in order to create something that was able to, connect with people on the other side. And I found myself speaking really fast and saying things overly quick and trying to compress everything into 30, 60 seconds. And this felt really, really off, but that was what had worked. And I ended up noticing that I wanted to, slow down the pace, that I wasn't trying to live that life of like, go, 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 go. That instead I wanted a life of groundedness, of peace, of calm. And that if I wanted to do that, maybe it was longer things. Maybe it was a different form of expression. And I knew that there was going to be a lot of people that didn't resonate with that, that wanted the fast, the hit, the emotion, the bam. However, my vocation was calling me for, more width, which also necessarily just brings in naturally more depth. And I needed to pursue that route. But it's hard because you're worried that other people, they're not going to like it, and is anyone else going to like it on the other side? Now, I had trust in my vocation, so I was able to make that transition, but not everyone is able to make that transition. I see people in culture that are just banging down the same things, right? The same expression, the same content. They're not growing, they're not evolving, they're not moving to that next phase. And it's stifling them. And you can see that they are acting as a caricature. And you see it most when they're around other people that were able to evolve in their calling. There's a contrast that goes on. I remember when I was on a call and a guy was interested in working with me, and he had hundreds of thousands of people on TikTok, hundreds of thousands of people on Instagram, and had built this really big, loyal following. Super interested in what he was doing. And he was telling me, like, this just isn't me anymore. This just isn't, the person that I want to express as. And I was saying, like, what does that look like? And why not just start to bring that into your life? Or why not start to even move from one page to another page, start a new page? What's going on here? Why can't you do that? Right? Because the ability to think of options as to how to, potentially transition are endless. There's so many different ways that you can approach this. But he said that fundamentally he didn't want to do that because then he'd have to, one, start over, right? Meaning that there was no real passion for what he was doing, because anyone that is deeply passionate about the work, they're like, okay, if that's what's necessary, then that's what's necessary. So the passion was gone. And the other thing that was missing was that he had no connection to his calling. And because the connection to his calling wasn't there, he was looking externally out of the world and saying, please give me my sense of existence. Please tell me how to pursue this. Please tell me how to navigate this. Only by having a really strong connection with your calling can you properly navigate over this bridge. Otherwise, you have this point of, I'm not going to do it because I don't know how it's going to work out. There's no sense of faith or belief underneath, and you just completely avoid it. And unfortunately, he didn't end up working with me, but I looked him up just before and ended up finding that he's just doing the exact same thing. And people don't know this. People see him posting online, and it just looks like, he's having a great life and he's having a great time. But underneath, right, below the surface, behind the image, he's not developing in his vocation, and it's tearing at him. And I hope, if he's watching this right now, that this is me telling you that you can pursue your vocation. You just need to connect into it and trust that that move will bring you to the place that you're meant to go. But so many people don't want to do that. So many people don't want to confront that. So many people don't want to walk that way because it requires this sense of deep connection to self and trust in yourself that this is the right move. Now, I'm not saying to you all to go burn down your social media channels, quit right now, and just start up a new page. I'm not saying that, right? I understand that many people have big social media followings or even small social media followings that are allowing them to live. I understand that this supports you, your livelihood, that you built this, but know that in transitioning to a place whereby you are pursuing more of your self-expression, more of the facets that you want to put into the world, that you take the wisdom that you've gained with you, right? It will be there in its essence. What burns away is the stuff that you don't want anymore. It's the very thing you're trying to escape from. It's the very thing that you've confided yourself in, whether that be a certain form of self-expression, a certain way of talking to the world, acting in the world. And moving in that direction is in your best interest. It's in the interest of your soul. I remember when I ended up deciding that I wanted to go all in on this topic of vocations. One of the things that I ended up doing was I had an Instagram page with, I think it was like 35,000 something followers, TikTok page with something around the same. Both of those pages had like reels and videos and things like that that went quite viral, I would say. If we say viral is above 100,000 views, I had many videos with views of like 500,000, 300,000 type of views and all that kind of stuff. But I realized that certain topics, certain things I was speaking about, certain ways of expression, certain approaches that I was making within those pages wasn't correct, wasn't right. Now, I could have gone one of two routes in my mind, which was I could start bringing in vocations as the core topic and just stopped talking about everything else on those pages and stayed and continued to build that social media platform. Or I could have just left and started a brand new page from scratch, let some people know, hey, this is where I am now, and go on that route. And that's what I ultimately decided to do. Right? I ended up deciding to stop posting on that big profile on Instagram. I dropped that TikTok page cold. Right? I haven't been in there, I haven't logged into it for probably like going on years now. And I started a brand new Instagram page, 0 followers on it. I went on Substack. I went and started a YouTube channel that had about no more than 60 subscribers for like 6 or 7 months of posting to it, about 2 to 3 times per week. And even though it was definitely difficult and tricky to navigate that, whereby I was like, is anyone going to actually start to understand what I'm doing, where I'm going, where I'm headed? It was so worth it because I knew deep down internally in connection with my vocation that this was the direction. This is where I was meant to go. And that internal knowing, that internal sense of like, oh, I know that I want to walk a path whereby I am in full control of how I can express myself and what I can talk about and where I can, explore in terms of the territory on the subject, that was so important to me. And that's why I ended up shifting. So if you yourself are going through this period of like, should I leave a social media profile? Should I stop, posting things that I know feel hollow or shallow or not real or a bit gimmicky, whatever it is, then I would encourage you to continue to explore this reflection, to really start to ask yourself, do you want a path whereby you're having to, show up in a way that isn't really how you are or how you're wired or that is inspiring to you? Or do you want to walk a path where you're able to cyclically change as you as a human being grow? Because that side of things, to me anyway, is 1,000 times better. And I want to be able to change and grow. And if I do change and grow, to be able to not be, jail-celled in a way of being, a way of expression, which very much to me is the same as, being within a 9-to-5 job, whereby I can't properly work on the things that I want to be working on. Posting on social media in the way that I can't, not allowed to post in, feels the exact same, feels like a jail. And so that's why I ended up changing. And if you're feeling that way, then like I said, reflect on it, understand why, and then have the courage to go with that internal knowing. Because it's so worth it to live a life, to walk a path where you're able to properly grow, expand, unfold, and become who you are, rather than be stifled by past decisions and past happenings and past events that are asking you to remain the same throughout your entire existence, which really does not, allow for this natural law of cycles to take place. And if you're interested in learning more about how I help people to have that sense of inner conviction, to really connect into their inner point of truth, then you'll want to check out our online community and 8-week course where I help people to choose the right career path with conviction by unearthing their very own career archetype. And within that 8-week course, I go through what's called an unearthing process, where I take people through different perspectives on themselves to uncover elements of who you are that you're not even aware of. I use things like astrology, Jungian psychology. I use mythology and understanding your life mythology, what is running underneath it. We look at different psychological barriers so that you can pursue your path without being hindered psychologically, because many of the times we can know what the techniques are or what the steps are, but we just can't actually do it. That's typically why the psychology thing is happening. But we also look at how this works financially for you in the modern world, so that once you unearth your career archetype and have this knowing, you can start to figure out how this works for you financially and from a lifestyle point of view. And so if you are interested in learning that and understanding what your very own career archetype is, then I'll leave a link below.